Emergency ration packs containing basics such as bread, milk and eggs, along with 2 satellite phones, were loaded onto the Polly helicopter this evening for a mercy mission to stranded residents. The police helicopter called in from Sydney to fly to Howes Valley and Putty in the Upper Hunter, where more than 24 people and isolated properties have been cut off for the past week. Putty Road closed due to fires burning along it. Residents also stuck without power or phone lines, but they now face bigger worries. A bushfire is 7 kilometres away, raging south towards their village, but firefighters are confident backburning will protect them. Meantime, firefighting authorities have defended a backburn that went terribly wrong yesterday, threatening a handful of homes at Fullerton Cove at Port Stephens.
But we've got to make a call as to, is it more of a risk to put a backburn in, or is it a greater risk to have the fire come out from within the unburnt fuel? So whether the containment line was there, they were backburning or not, we figured would have spotted across.
With hot weather predicted for Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, there are renewed warnings.
I would ask people to not depend on the fire service being able to get to every house. I don't want to panic people. I mean, it's a normal response to this sort of conditions is make sure that your own houses are cleaned up, make sure the gutters are cleaned out.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
With a year on the pro circuit behind her, Cherie Burns feels better armed for 2002, but her time of late has been devoted to attracting a strong field to her home course at Horizons for the ALPG event. And now the focus is definitely on simply playing good golf.
I'm more or less just concentrating on my golf now. I'm spending definitely all the morning practicing.
And she'll have to. Australian legend Jan Stevenson was the last big name to commit before entries closed late yesterday to a field that boasts some of the game's biggest names.
The quality of the field's just amazing. I expected a few of the top names, but we've nearly got everyone. Only person we're missing is Kari.
But with the likes of Laura Davies, Rachel Teskey and Sophie Gustafsson lining up, the home course advantage really doesn't mean much to Cherie.
These girls are used to playing on a different course every week, and they can arrive at Horizons and play that course as well as any other course they've played before.
The 54-hole event starts on February 14. After flying over the Hunters bushfire hotspots, the Premier was full of praise for local volunteers.
It just showed the difficulty of fighting fire in this area because of the different parcels of land and different ownership, different pockets of forested country. They've faced a very formidable job in containing fires in this part of the Hunter.
The crew from North Rothbury knows the dangers all too well. They've returned from fighting fires in the west of the state where they were overrun by flames. Their tanker left damaged and melted.
Close, very close. I suppose had we have not had aerial protection at that particular time, we probably would have had more damage to the vehicle. It may have been, it would have had to be towed away.
For these men and women, a little recognition goes a long way, especially for people like Deborah and Terry Roberts, whose family of 6 are all brigade members.
If you want a definition of the Australian community at its best, this is it.
On the Hunter fire front, 2 blazes near Cessnock are now contained, while large outbreaks at Yengo near Wollombi and Bulga near Broke are still uncontrolled. Paul Lobb, NBN News. The pilot of the seaplane was attempting to take off near the shore at Shoal Bay when the aircraft's right wing dug into the water and violently spun the aircraft around. Officers on duty at the Inner Light Coastal Patrol Base watched the mishap unfold.
He was about 10 feet in the air and then did a turn. So, of course, as soon as he dipped his wing, you know, the water surface tension of water is like concrete.
The Coastal Patrol was inundated with calls from eyewitnesses concerned for the crew's safety.
We had calls here. Everybody sort of called us at the one time, and then we watched and all the vessels were going out to it, so it had plenty of help.
The wing on the $180,000 aircraft was substantially damaged. The pilot and 3 people on board were unhurt but were checked over by ambulance officers. It's believed the locally based pilot is attempting to gain approvals for a joy flight business in the bay.
There's no risk in the world. He tried to do a turn much too soon. I think he was showing off, to be perfectly honest.
They say Saturday night is Speedway night, but there was something a little different about this meeting at Tomago. Wherever you looked, there seemed to be someone or something trying to outdo another. The Monster Truck Challenge was just the start. The Globe of Death followed, and thankfully it didn't live up to its name. Then some high-flying daredevils had their go, while stuntmen went to every length to get the biggest cheer. And at the Lismore Speedway overnight, the racing was far more conventional, if not spectacular. After losing a wheel, Michael G got plenty of air, with his machine spinning into a recently erected safety fence. Both G and his fans were unhurt. The same can't be said for his machine.
When wildfires rip through bushland, animals who aren't fast enough to escape will be injured or killed. For the first time since the bushfire crisis began, members of the Native Animal Trust Fund have been given clearance to enter burnt-out parcels of bush. Today at Karua, amid burnt banksias and blackened grass trees, they came face to face with a few locals, but none needing medical attention.
And the fact that we haven't found too much today, is that a good sign or a bad sign?
I'd see it as a good sign because we're not even finding any dead carcasses at this stage. So hopefully that's a really good sign. They may have fled to cooler areas. There are unburnt areas in there, swampy type areas. So we're hoping that that's where they've fled to.
The volunteers have a fully equipped field hospital set up at the Karua Bowling Club, ready to treat the animals, many of whom have lost their habitat.
But once they return to this area, there's no food source for them. There's no leaves. All the leaves have been completely burnt. So that is going to be an ongoing problem.
Bandicoots can burrow to escape the flames, but koalas climb higher and often perish. People who find burnt or injured animals should phone the Native Animal Rescue Hotline on 0500 502 294. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Thousands of files containing life-saving information are on the move. The records of every patient who has ever attended the John Hunter Hospital are being transferred to a new purpose-built area.
People's records must be kept confidential, the information that's in them, and we just make sure and monitor the move and make sure that no record goes missing and no one has access to the record that shouldn't have.
Currently, the hospital has enough space to store only 5 years' worth of medical records on site. It isn't a lot, considering each record is kept for a minimum of 15 years. But some records are kept forever, such as in the case of patients who have genetic diseases. The information is kept in hope advances in medical technology could one day offer an insight for future generations.
It does allow us to actually reopen the records and researchers to have a look so that they can improve patient care, and that's what a lot of the researchers are always looking at.
The move is a 2-week operation, The $12 million refurbishment of the Emergency Department and Intensive Care Unit will then begin. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. It's not your typical summer school. These students have been specially selected to learn more about information technology. Aside from having the costs of their tuition covered, each student will receive $500 if they successfully complete the course. 15 courses are running across the state these holidays, including at Maitland and Newcastle.
We can be a real great country in terms of software development and services, and we're missing out on that bandwagon at the moment. So if these young people can get up there in the industry and start driving us toward a real software developing nation, we'll do very well.
The 14-day school covers everything from word processing to multimedia skills, and for many it's just the first step to something much bigger.
I'll probably work for Microsoft and get as high as I can.
While others are planning a career in the film industry.
All the action scenes, the explosions, weapons.
There's a nationwide shortage of qualified personnel right now. As many as 20,000 more people are wanted. There's no shortage of interest in the Hunter though, where 3,000 people have applied for courses at the Hunter Institute of TAFE. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Six-year-old Cody Lee Meredith has been bedridden with a broken leg at John Hunter Children's Hospital since before Christmas. And while she has Florence Ross, an in-house play therapist, to help take her mind off things, at times it can get
a little bit boring.
While young patients are able to visit the hospital's two small playgrounds, the facilities are 10 years old and well past their use-by date. But now there are plans to build a two-storey $1 million amusement extension in a courtyard.
We've got a Ronald McDonald House which provides accommodation for people coming from out of town, but this space for people who are actually local people will be the first in Australia, so that's very exciting and quite something for Newcastle.
Upstairs will be a Starlight Express room, fitted out with video games, toys and a full-time Captain Starlight to organise games. The end of the courtyard will be transformed into a fairy garden with two new playgrounds.
When you hospitalise a child, you hospitalise a family, and families need experiences other than seeing their child in pain or seeing that other children distressed and upset.
The Starlight Foundation, Ronald McDonald House and the Kids Club are the major fundraisers. However, community donations such as this $1,000 cheque handed over by Bunnings warehouse staff are still needed. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Even after 3 weeks without a game, injuries can still figure in United's team selection process, with Peter Sekenis and Joe Schripper trying to overcome respective abdomen and back complaints.
I'd be surprised if they weren't both involved, I must admit. They did a little bit today, the two of them, but and I think they pulled up okay.
Michael Prentice and Mitchell Johnson are on standby for the two top-grade regulars, while Milan Blagojevic looks set to play his first game in 5 weeks. Striker Daniel McBreen, meanwhile, will start from the bench, with Crook keeping Asala Massi in the 11.
It's a bonus having Daniel back, a big bonus, and certainly the more he can keep ticking over and the stronger he gets, then more chance he's got, obviously, of starting.
All of United's players will be looking to kick off the second half of the season with a win, but no one more than Robbie Middleby. He'll play his 100th NSL game against a Melbourne Knights team, coached by his former captain at Carlton.
I would like to have done it here, and there would have been nicer places than Melbourne Knights' home ground, but it'd still be a big game for us, and hopefully we'll get 3 points.
United has 2 more training sessions at home this week before heading off to Melbourne on game day.
To pop or to screw? That is the question facing Hunter Vignerons. One who's decided to trial screw tops is Mark Davison of Tamburlaine Wines. He'll cap off some of his 2002 reserve whites after positive feedback from wine club members, though some are aghast.
Perhaps there is an issue of snobbery, whatever, that's going to stop people in an emotional sense. They're going to be involved with corks and feel better for it. But I'm just saying, and I think there's a lot of other winemakers in the Hunter Valley, and there's winemakers particularly in the Clare Valley, they're just saying, well, we drink a lot of wine, we not only own a whole range of wines, and we know that we're after technical excellence, and we're after every bottle to be as good as the last.
The big drawback of cork is cork taint and annoying floating debris. The screw tops also reduce the risk of oxidisation of the wine, which dulls the flavour, not to mention avoiding the often embarrassing blunder of breaking the cork off while trying to impress.
Well, I think we associate the screw top with the cheap wines, and would we want to serve that at the table to our friends?
I'd give it a go. It's what's inside that counts.
Other vineyards are waiting to see if the screw top takes off. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
It felt strong enough to blow a dog off a chain, and while one was doing his best to catch waves on shore, surfers had it much tougher when the southerly blew. But after weeks of small swell, the southerly is believed to be just the thing.
Swell was almost disappearing with the offshore wind we had this morning. Bang, in comes a southerly buster. We've got swell all weekend. What more could you want?
The title, most likely. Today's heats, though, became battle enough. With high-scoring rides, few and far between, Lincoln Robards made the most of some waves that came his way. But all of today's riders are still to greet the top 3 seeds. They start their campaign tomorrow, including 4-time winner and defending champion Paul Parks.
He's won a hat-trick, going for a double tomorrow for his 5th one. Second seed Dan Frodsham, he's won before, and Christian McCall, he's had 5 third places so far.
All up, the 170-strong field surfing across 7 divisions will be whittled down for the finals tomorrow afternoon. Jockey Scott Seamer's winning form continuing aboard Lovely Jubbly, which returned 14.70 for the win. Earlier in the day, the Max Lees trained Empire led for almost the entire journey in the $1 million race for 3-year-olds. Gay Waterhouse having the last laugh, with Ha Ha getting the money. Heading into the final of the Open A-Men, Caves Beach was the one to beat, having won both of the earlier heats. But once the starter's gun sounded in the final, it was anyone's race, with light conditions favouring no one. Luck does play a part though, and coming home, Caves had run out. Nobbies, however, were in perfect position, taking an armchair run to the line for the win. Caves still hold the overall series lead. From man-powered to man-made speedsters, and at Tomago overnight, things weren't always going to plan. In fact, a few had trouble staying the right way up. While a super sedan sandwich isn't the most tasteful of things either. The 50-lap final would have had panel beaters licking their lips though, as drivers gave as good as they got. In the end, Robert Carey got a clear passage home. And the heats of the intercity pace have sorted out some clear favourites for the $18,000 final next weekend. Miami Beach blew away its opposition in Heat 3. While Seahawk DJ is going to be another to threaten for the famed final. It was a frantic finish to the final. Hamwicks were defending just 166, and that total was fast approaching as Merryweather captain Chad White continued his attacking mood. As he hit his way towards 30, it wasn't without some luck. Even when Todd Campbell snared a screamer, the match still looked to be Merryweather's, but 3 wickets in the final over handed Hamwicks an improbable 1-run victory. At Wallsend, Newcastle's sole women's cricket team that competes in the Sydney grade competition hosted the fancied Bankstown outfit. Spinner Laura Clulow had a great start, picking up Australian rep Michelle Gosgo for 24. It started a tailspin for the second-place Bankstown, with Julie McVie finding the edge of Sally Shaw's bat. Keeper Jenny Wallace was having a fine day behind the stumps, with the under-23 Australian squad member then combining with Clulow to stump the Bankstown skipper Sally Pratt for 2. The Sydney Siders losing their last 5 wickets for 32 runs, Wallsend passing the total with 2 wickets to spare, with Leah Polton hitting 31. It was a bit of a horror trip all round. A delayed flight home today did nothing to brighten Robbie Middleby's mood. The midfielder nursing an injured ankle, something he's likely to do for a while yet.
Well, there might be a small fracture. There's a lot of swelling at the moment, but I've still got to get an X-ray.
It was meant to be a great day for the 26-year-old. Playing his 100th top-grade game, he scored the first goal. But celebrations quickly turned to concern. He took no further part in the game, and just when he'll return won't be clearer until tomorrow.
I thought, oh, great, scored a goal, but then straight away that pain, it really sunk in, and it's pretty bad at the moment.
The team's first loss wasn't the result of one injury though. United had several chances to score more, but the effects of 22 days without a match seemed to show. In the second half, goalkeeper Daniel Beltrame was sharp when the Knights attacked, but he could do little about stopping Melbourne skipper Andrew Marth from equalising. It gave the home side the spark they needed. In contrast, United didn't do nearly enough with the chances that fell their way. As the clock wound down, a draw seemed the most likely result, but who else but a man named De Jesus to be a last-minute salvation for the home side? The loss drops Newcastle to third spot on the ladder. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Cultural attractions such as a book cafe and the presence of a full-time security guard have helped generate growing consumer confidence in the mall. But vacated stores, some empty for years, are a reminder the mall is still struggling to survive.
The fact that a lot of the buildings in town with empty shop fronts are owned by people who live in Sydney, for example, and they don't mind if the shop fronts are empty because they're using it as a tax write-off. Now that's really bad for our city. They keep the rents unnecessarily high.
That problem aside, councillors hope UK design specialist John Montgomery can help with ideas to rejuvenate the shopping precinct, which he visited today during a tour of the city.
Diversify the frontages, by which I mean not every unit has to be a shop. You have to have some restaurants down here, some nice cafes, and you've got the weather. You've got the weather here.
We need the people of Newcastle to say, hey, it's a great place to hang out. We need music, we need atmosphere, we need ambience, but we need all of those things to happen overnight virtually to make this place what it should become.
Council has rejected criticism Mr Montgomery's hiring was a waste of money, claiming he was available at a reasonable cost for worldly experience.
What John will allow us to do is to refine our act to make sure we don't make the mistakes that other places of work.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. Meet the new faces of crime fighting. Dean French and Clayton Evans both have science degrees and a background in pathology. They beat hundreds of applications to become two of the state's 50 scenes of crime officers, civilians who work for police, collecting and analysing forensic evidence.
What we do basically is attend the
high volume crimes, breaking into stolen motor vehicles, that sort of thing, and we're looking for any sort of evidence. We're looking for fingerprints. We're also looking for physical evidence in the form of DNA.
It's a bit of satisfaction when you get an ident on a fingerprint. Haven't had a great deal yet. I've only been at it for 2 months, but touch wood, we'll get a few more.
The role is somewhat specialised, and therefore we can ensure that the people that we're training as police are more available to be on the street.
Meantime, Newcastle Local Area Command has been the first in the region to create a new intranet intelligence site.
Virtually at a touch of a button, any police officer here in Newcastle can gain access to all the information they need about any criminal, about any hotspot, about where the crime's happening, when it's happening, and all those details that help them to do their job that little bit better, a bit more professionally.
The site will soon be available for officers across the state. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
With Robbie Middleby already ruled out before today's scan, the only real issue with this week's team was who would replace him. For the moment, that role seems destined for Travis Dodd.
There are a couple of other options in those sort of positions. I mean, Matthew Bingley could do a job for us in that area. Joel Griffiths has everything to do in that area. He's got all the attributes to make that position. Mitchell Johnson can play that position, but I would say Travis would probably come in for a straight swap.
Mitchell Johnson comes into the 15 with the side otherwise unchanged, certainly not in the back line at any rate, with Andy Roberts lining up for his 204th appearance for a Newcastle club. Roberts will equal the record of former Breakers teammate and mentor Ralph Mayer, and after more than a decade, his own passion for the game hasn't dimmed.
Hopefully, I'm almost 32 now, I can be here for another couple of years and guide Newcastle to firstly top 6 place, which will be the first Newcastle team to do so, and ultimately a championship.
Friday night will also be significant for team bosses, who will play host to the chairman of the English Premier League's Newcastle United. There's no firm agenda for the meeting, but a sister club arrangement is an option.
We'll take any opportunity we can to forge links with what is the strongest league in the world.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
This year, Europe, the UK and Canada are the most highly sought after holiday destinations. But consultants at today's travel show had all the latest deals, advice and information on many other popular places, including Australia. Today's crowds was an encouraging sign, especially for travel world agents who faced an uncertain future last year following the collapse of Ansett and Travelland.
I think once Christmas was over, people decided to get on with it, and we have been absolutely busy, working mad hours just trying to cope with the demand.
This summer is an ideal time to take a break. A $150 rebate is on offer, courtesy of the federal government's holiday incentive scheme. Applications are due to close in just 2 weeks, but so far only 10% of Australians have taken up the offer. That may be because the deal hasn't been well publicised and has too many restrictions, according to member for Newcastle, Sharon Grierson.
The critical timing, a very short window of opportunity, and no one seems to know about it.
Along with the Tourism Task Force, Mrs Grierson is calling for the remaining money from the $5 million package to be reinvested back into the tourism industry. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
It's still a construction zone and water and power are yet to be connected, but the first 22 floating berths at the Newcastle Cruising Yacht Club are already being utilised.
We've had 54 boats in 10 days, just visitors, people who've never been to Newcastle before. What they brought into Newcastle is a complete new awareness to what the city's got to offer. And they're spending money. This is great for our tourist industry.
Dot Murgatroyd arrived in port last night aboard the motor cruiser Paul Mitchell and was impressed with the work so far.
There's lots of us cruising up and down the coast, and we need these facilities. Lots of people come from overseas, and if there's nowhere to go to come and see our beautiful places, which Newcastle is, well, they just leave again, which is sad because they don't invest in our community.
Eventually there'll be 200 berths available, with strong interest from Sydney boaties.
It's just too costly to keep a boat in Sydney. And a lot of the visitors have been here over the Christmas period are all Sydney boats, and they're amazed at the fact they can get a marina berth up here, and some of them I think I'll be considering whether they bring their boats here or not.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
When it comes to country music, Bruce Howard certainly knows his stuff.
Here's a nice little song from Trevor Dennis. He sums it up very nicely. Heading to country music capital Tamworth to soak up all that country music atmosphere.
For years, the Newcastle radio country music broadcaster has been predicting the winners of Tamworth's Golden Guitar Awards. His tips for this year include Tanya Kernaghan.
He's got a brand new album out, it's called Big Sky Country, so this year could be Tanya Kernaghan.
And as for the male vocalist of the year, Bruce reckons it's sure to be Brendan Walmsley.
I think the album this year has made a huge impact in Australian country music. It's Brendan Walmsley. It's a brilliant album. That's my choice.
Over the years, Australian country music has certainly built up its share of loyal followers, thanks to weekly radio programs like Bruce's. This year, the Country Music Festival celebrates its 30th anniversary. And for those who've never been to the country music mecca,
the whole atmosphere, the crowds, and it's just wonderful. Never been to Tamworth, you need to go, folks.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
What a year 2001 was for Andrew Johns. His form irresistible as success seemed to follow the number 7. A call confirmed by the British magazine Rugby League World for the second time, with its annual World Best Player poll easily going to Johns. And given his season, it's easy to see why. After cementing the Kangaroo halfback spot, Johns captained Newcastle to another premiership, earning the Clive Churchill Medal in the process. A successful Ashes campaign capped off a fantastic season, which also saw him voted the most popular player amongst NRL fans for the 4th time. But in the end, he's happy with the simple accolades.
When I found out today, I rang my parents, and my dad said he's really proud of me. And, he sort of doesn't say too much, but that was really nice for him to say that.
Next week, he'll lead his Knights team to England for the World Cup Challenge, one of the few things Johns is yet to add to his resume. But for the man with the most, he isn't about to rest.
Now I've reached a level where I know I can play. I just want to stay there and just keep playing consistently that way all the time. And I think as a team too, we can do that.
Good news too for teammates Ben Kennedy, Adam McDougall and Matt Gidley, who were all voted as the best players in their positions.
It's a great award for them. I think Steve Simpson got a couple of votes. Danny Medeiros was a close second behind Kieran Cunningham and Hooker. So, it's great for the club, I think.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. The powerful left-hander hit form early for the Bush Blues side at the Country Championships, scoring a century in their first match. Grimman then posted another 2 half-centuries to earn his second call-up into the Australian country side. The team will play New Zealand at Bowral next Tuesday. Meanwhile, his former Newcastle teammate Murray Christie will lead his home rep side for the last time on Sunday against the touring London Club Cricket Conference side. After 12 years in representative cricket, the match will also be Christie's 100th for Newcastle. And at Newcastle Speedway tomorrow night, the World Series Sprint Car Championship will be decided, with Australian Matt Dumsney and American Donny Schatz fighting it out for the title. With the leaders 4 shots clear of the field, it was time to roll up the sleeves. Susie Fisher got off to the start she needed with a birdie on the second. The best placed local, Vicky Tutt, didn't start the way she would have liked, with a first hole bogey. So too Sarah Kemp, but she promptly picked it back up at the next. While not waving a white flag, a windswept Belmont layout wasn't taking any prisoners as it quickly became a battle of survival. As the field fell away, it was a 2-horse race, with Kemp holding a 1-shot lead from Nikki Campbell as they played the final hole. Campbell couldn't force a playoff, and 16-year-old Kemp held her game together to finish a 1-shot winner.
The twisted and wrecked water tanker lay upside down across 2 front yards. It had been parked on a building site opposite when it began rolling down the hill, accelerating quickly.
I heard the noise of the truck coming flying down the road across the road here, and then I looked up straight away and just seen the white debris, and it hit the tree and the truck rolling over. Yeah, it was quite frightening.
There were fears for several people's lives as the driverless truck crossed Wallsend Road.
I missed the bus by about a metre, and a Freedom van that pulled up next door. Yeah, they just moved out the way as it come down.
Neighbours Bert Moonen and Jack Newton couldn't believe it. After the accident, Jack took a call from his concerned wife.
Said she heard on the news that a truck had gone through her house. I said, not our house, is it? And I said, no, don't be silly. And I've just got off the phone, walked out here and saw this debacle.
Very lucky. I mean, it could have taken out the boat and the house and the whole lot. So I'm glad the trees were there to survive, to stop it from coming through.
The tanker driver has told police he had activated the handbrake. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Frank Farina is someone who knows all about national pride. In his first speaking engagement since the Socceroos' defeat in Uruguay, Farina talked openly to guests at today's annual Australia Day luncheon.
Look, I was born here, I've grown up in Australia. I've represented my country in my chosen sport, and that makes me very proud.
This year's Australia Day Award for Community Event of the Year went to the Masters Games. Teenager Ashley John was awarded Young Citizen of the Year, while Roy Duffy was awarded the 2002 Citizen of the Year for his work with the disabled and setting up life without barriers.
I've enjoyed doing it, and it could have went to many, many people. Why I was chosen, I can't say. I suppose that's a question for the judges.
And today's colourful entertainment was only a warm-up for some big celebrations in Newcastle come Saturday. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
This is what the Knights will be wearing in the fight for the medal of best club team in the world, and the players don't seem to mind.
Yeah, I don't mind it actually. Nice carriage strip.
Also on board for the one-off look, Qantas. As for the rest of the season,
that's something the Knights will make an announcement of in the next few weeks.
It'll be early next week before coach Michael Hagan settles on his starting team after the side reaches England and trains on a limited preparation. But it doesn't take much to work out the big Bradford pack will target Andrew Johns in their fight for the title.
Well, I see where Bradford have rated as important in their club history as any game ever, so it's important from our point of view.
The club has planned, as best it can, ways to offset the complications of travelling, including the use of legging pants, but there is little they can do about the limited preparation. Late today, the side played the London Broncos at Gosford in a simulated match. It was more like a get-to-know-you game, but it's the best the team can hope for before the real thing in 10 days' time.
We will have done everything we possibly can to prepare for the game without actually having played a game, if that makes sense.
Mark Hughes seemed to shrug off any concerns of an ankle complaint as he set up Sean Rudder for a try, but it was hard to see how any player would have copped a serious knock today.
More than 130 anglers of all ages wet a line in the annual Lakelands Carp Cull. Known as the rabbits of rivers, European carp are having a destructive impact on many of Australia's waterways. Lakeland Wetlands is just one such example. Designed to filter stormwater runoff from the surrounding housing estate before it reaches Lake Macquarie, the introduction of the carp in the wetlands has damaged the fragile ecosystem.
It no longer works as an extractor of the nutrients because all the plant life that once was abundant in this pond is no longer here. So it's virtually straight runoff from this estate going through this system and then into Lake Macquarie.
And although the carp weren't exactly lining up to take the bait today, there were a couple of small and big wins for nature. 10-year-old Gary Fisher, yes, that is his name, managed to land this 5-kilogram monster that was capable of producing 1 million eggs a year.
I was just about to say that we're never going to catch anything and it's just useless, we may as well shift, and then just jumped on.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Daniel McBreen spent 10 weeks on the sideline after injuring his knee in the opening round of the season, but he's making up for lost ground, scoring 3 goals in the past 4 games and is hoping to make a big impression this weekend.
Make her keep scoring, then obviously the more difficult it becomes to not include him.
I'll score 5 on the weekend.
Asala Massey has proved a worthy replacement, so it's up to McBreen to fight his way back.
Just got to keep doing what he's putting me on to do, and hopefully I'll just keep scoring and I won't give him the chance to leave me out.
Meantime, coach Ian Crook has some other injury worries.
Zorro's still a doubt, and Robbie Middleby at this stage is a 50-50.
After 7 draws, 4 wins and a loss, United is equal second on the table with Brisbane behind leaders Perth. Saturday's opponent, Parramatta, is placed 8th. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
More than 60 police today rallied at a stop work meeting out the front of Warramai Children's Court. Officers frustrated that the Juvenile Justice Department has failed to honour its 2-year-old promise of fixing serious safety hazards in custody areas.
Our goal here today, members, is to ensure that we send a clear and unambiguous message to the government that we want Warramai shut. We're not going to place the lives of police, of the staff here at the court and also the public at risk anymore.
Warramai is notorious for a long line of escapes, arson offences and attacks on police.
This place does not meet the standards of the recommendations for the Aboriginal Royal Commission into Deaths in Custody. It doesn't meet the standards. We're remiss if we bring juveniles here and place them in substandard facilities.
Police voted to boycott transporting juveniles to Warramai and guarding them. The state government buckled under the pressure this afternoon, announcing transporting responsibilities will now fall to juvenile justice officers, freeing up more police on the street. But the Police Association says that doesn't solve the issue of dangerous conditions. It's given the government 24 hours to announce a solution or risk further industrial action such as paperwork bans. The Department of Juvenile Justice says it's committed to addressing the problem, but that means nothing without a firm funding commitment.
I'm confident that juvenile justices and the Attorney General's Department will work very, very closely and very vigorously in the next few days with me to resolve some of the issues.
In the meantime, children's custodial matters are being referred to Toronto Court. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
It's clear from the security video the thieves who broke into the Rathmines Bowling Club early on Wednesday morning knew exactly where they were heading. After smashing their way through the front window, they went through the rear door and used this block splitter to break through the security door and into the safe, which contained thousands of dollars and cheques. The youths also packed their bags with alcohol before making off across the lake in a small dinghy, which was later recovered with stolen cheques. Today, staff said the robbery was a blow to the tight-knit community.
It's sort of like it's been an invasion of our own home. We're all devastated.
But late this afternoon, a breakthrough came when detectives arrested and charged a 17-year-old boy with break, enter and steal and other unrelated offences. He was refused bail and will appear in court tomorrow. Police are investigating similarities between Wednesday's robbery and another one which occurred at the club last month.
That offence happened some 3 weeks previous and occurred under a similar circumstance. So yes, we're not ruling out that they are linked.
Meanwhile, club managers say a costly security upgrade is now underway.
Considerable cost, but if that's what it takes to stop these people, well, we'll do whatever it takes.
Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Seen here in happier times, Chris Fotive is in the centre of a political storm. Yesterday, a report revealed thousands of homosexual pornography images had been downloaded onto his council computer, including photos of naked children and bestiality scenes. The report didn't implicate Fotive, but found most downloading was done at his home using credit card numbers. The Labor councillor alleges he was framed by someone who broke into his home, but Bob Toussis is one of 3 independents who are demanding he
resign and do the honourable thing, actually. So if he doesn't resign,
and we've got 20 odd months to go running this council. All I can see is uncertainty, suspicion.
Working in Sydney, Mr Fotev says he'll do no such thing. Councillor Fotev believes by the time the next election comes around, in a little under 2 years, his constituents would have forgotten the matter.
I am confident that I can clear my name before then.
Meantime, Lake Macquarie Mayor John Kilpatrick has hit back at Fotev's claims he compromised the integrity of the investigation.
In his letter, he claimed that there had been interference from me, which is total rubbish. To sort of suggest there has been any impropriety on my part, that frankly is defamatory from him.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
After an uneventful first half, Parramatta unleashed a set piece against United in the 57th minute.
The Power have scored and it's David Barrett.
The frustration showed on goalie Daniel Beltrame's face. United bolstered its front line by sending Asala Massey into the mix with Daniel McBreen and Joel Griffiths. But Newcastle's best chance came from a Blagojevich corner. United's fate was sealed in the 83rd minute by NSL newcomer Brett Holman. Newcastle remains in second on the ladder, while Parramatta jumps into the top 6. It was a sea of tiny sails off Marmong Point today as sailors in the Sabo class boats made the most of the light southerly breeze. There was some close racing as the 11 to 16-year-olds navigated their way around the course. M. White aboard Do or Die made a nice line towards the mark, while Jay Berman in first solo could hardly contain his enthusiasm. Nick Scarley Jr. was on the pace in his boat, Nick of Time. And the race was over early for Erin Natras in Sapphire when a shackle pin holding up the mast came loose. The day belonged to James Doran from Gosford, who won the senior division. Meantime, down at Sunshine, the shore was littered with sails as light winds delayed racing in the second day of the Australian sailboard titles.
Last night, so mini marathons.
Oh, cool. Was it good?
Yeah. So
We're starting at a new school, a senior one, so we get to meet heaps of new people, and it should be good just meeting everyone, seeing old friends.
It's great. Are the kids looking forward to go back to school?
Well, we're looking forward to them going back to school.
Yeah, if it's Wednesday, we can come to the beach without the kids.
Yeah,
Yay!
definitely.